Welcome to Ready to Launch, the series where entrepreneurs and side hustlers share their behind-the-scenes stories about how they got started and how they've managed the transitions in establishing, sustaining, and growing their businesses even in difficult times. In this series, I interview inspiring men and women who are models for anyone who's ready to launch an entrepreneurial initiative or passion project. From their stories, we learn how to be bold and execute on our business and life goals. So you're in the right place if you're ready to dream a bigger dream, have greater impact, and live a more fulfilled life. This is Ready to Launch, and I am your host, Fatima Williams. So I am so glad to welcome today Nicole Gill, unique consultant at the Black status presenter level. I'm so excited for this interview. I will give a little bit of an opening for everyone who's listening. Nicole and I actually met when we were like teenagers in high school doing a nursing program. I think the whole purpose was like to get teens, and I think it was just women, right? No, there were some guys too. Yeah. Get us like interested in the healthcare profession. And I think the joke there is that I fainted one day.
Yes, you did. I almost fainted one day.
But you actually went on to become a nurse. And so I'm super excited to be here today because I think of you now as like nurse turned business woman, beauty maven. And so I'm really excited to welcome you on to, this interview series and to just learn more from you and hear more about your journey from nursing to business. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. This is my first podcast ever. So
Woo-hoo!
Thank you. That's like a pioneering step for me here. But I don't say no. I never say no, even to things that scare me. That's kind of a key component of my business is do the things that scare you a little bit. Take the chances and say yes, because you don't know what that yes is going to turn into.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you said yes. And so I'll kick us off with, our first question. One, I think, I'm really interested to hear about this, and our listeners will be as well. Tell us just first, like, what does it mean to be a Black status presenter with Unique? And what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis as a business owner?
Okay, so Black status level with Unique is the top leadership level in the company. Unique is a direct sales company, and we were actually the first direct sales company to operate exclusively on social media. So when a lot of people think of direct sales, they think Mary Kay, they think 31, they think home parties, which is how direct sales has traditionally been. And then when Unique started, they wanted to offer a way for women to be able to work from home without having to leave the home, so that they could still raise the children and do the things that they needed to do at home without actually having to leave home. So that's how it got started. And when I got started, I was nursing. I was working not full time, but I was working probably 24 hours a week. And I could not, I needed something that wouldn't take more time away because I was already away enough. But basically, get back to your question, with being a Black status leader, you have a team. You have a team underneath you, a team of women who often start just like you started, with no business experience, no sales experience. Maybe they had some feelings of inadequacy and they have these goals to get out of it. And so you work with them on coaching them towards being comfortable representing their business and working their business, and you do some sales coaching, and it's more of a trickle-down effect because so many of us who do Unique, we didn't have any business experience. So it's kind of more like an apprenticeship, I guess. So during the day, that's what I do. We do coaching calls for people who have certain goals. They set their sales goals for the month. They set their sponsoring goals for the month. We do check-ins. We make sure everybody's still on track. We are a party plan business, so, we'll tweak some of the party formats, and I do a lot of social media assessments. So I watch how people are posting and representing themselves on social media so that and I give them feedback. Like, I don't know that this connects with the audience. What does your target audience look like? I don't know that maybe this is how you want to represent this. So maybe let's tweak it this way. So, it's just kind of lots of assessments and lots of interacting with women all day long.
And it sounds like lots of management too, right? Because at the level that you're at least the last from the research that we did, the count that we had was like you have 27,000 people under you. And so, Of course, there's tiers to that, right? That you're managing, but still that's a large number to have under you that you're motivating, that you're helping in some way to manage. So it's more than, like you said, just home parties and here, let's have fun.
Yes, it is. It's more than that. It's and there are the leadership levels, within the organization. And fortunately, I've got phenomenal leaders in my organization, kind of in the tree underneath me, and they kind of each have their own little microcosm of team that they manage. So we do have a lot of overlapping leadership because, people connect with different people. So maybe I don't connect with my direct sponsor, but I connect with the sponsor, her sponsor. And so she can absolutely come to me, and if someone's like that on my team, they can absolutely come to me, and there is a lot of overlapping leadership there. So it's not the full 27,000 contacting you all day long, but it is a large point, and there's a lot of management, but we also have to maintain our own personal sales and our own personal sponsoring goals so that we can maintain our status level.
Okay. So I want to take a big step back because, you're now at this Black status level, but I want to get a sense of the Nicole who was nursing, what that nursing lifestyle and schedule was like for you. But what was really happening for you at that moment in your life and your career that had you look outside and say, yes, I have this career, it's established, I'm doing well, but I want to make a change or something needs to shift here. Take us back to that moment for you, like what was going on with you?
So I think for me, it wasn't just one moment. It was kind of a large block of time. I graduated nursing school when I was 22. I was pregnant with my first child, and I went straight to work. I went directly to work. I was pregnant with him. I did my orientation while I was like the last 3 months, and then I went on maternity leave, and then I came back at 3.5 weeks because I hadn't been working long enough to have PTO built up. So he was 3.5 weeks old, and I needed the money to support us, so I went back to work, and it was a grind. It was a grind, and I started out in med-surg, which is, in the healthcare profession, when you get out of nursing school, they say you should always have a strong med-surg base. So I started with med-surg, and then after a year or so, I moved to the ER, and I did emergency room ever since then. So, but as I had my kids, I had Cannon, and then I had Saxton and Declan, and the more activities and the more things they were doing, the more I was missing out on. As with when you have a nursing schedule, you work weekends, you work holidays, you miss so many things. And I was just the older they got and the more things I missed, the more I felt this need to be doing something else. And it kind of came on as soon as I had, right after I had Saxton. I missed Cannon's first Halloween. I had to miss, you miss a lot. And I've always been like a creative type, and nursing school was not easy for me. Regular school, totally easy for me. Straight A's, breezed through everything. But nursing school was very challenging because my brain thinks a lot more abstractly than it does with concrete, formulas and science. And I did nursing because I knew it was secure and I knew that I could make a good living off of it, but I would never, ever, ever say that was my passion. My mom was a nurse. My aunts were nurses. We were all we worked rescue squad, and so I should be a nurse. And my dad pushed me for, pre-med and all of that. So everybody's like, Nicole's going to be a doctor. And I would never call it my passion. So I think there was always this little part of me that wanted to do something different. And then, but I call myself a cyclical obsessive creative. We're somebody who, I totally made that up, but it's, so you feel the need to be creative, but you have this like a little bit of an obsessive tendency. And if you talk to like top leaders in a lot of direct sales organizations, they will all tell you they have this obsessive tendency. And so I had this little obsessive tendency, and I would, what did I do first? I mean, I would obsess about planning baby showers like that. I was like, I've got to plan the best baby shower. So when Pinterest came out, oh my gosh, I was obsessed with Pinterest. I became a Pinterest obsessed person. And then it was refinishing furniture. And so I started, it was so crazy. And this is all while I'm working as a nurse. I started kind of tracking where the wealthier neighborhoods were. And the night before the trash truck would come, I would go out to these neighborhoods and look for anything that they'd thrown out, and like furniture and stuff. And I'm like, all it needs is paint. All it needs is one screw. All it needs is this. And I would get it and I would paint it, because it's when painted furniture really started. And I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of fun, like taking this piece of junk and turning it into something else and then selling it. But when I started to work out the math as to how much I was actually being paid per hour, it was like $1 an hour. So I was like, this isn't, and all the money you invest in your supplies. And then I became a crazy coupon lady and like an extreme couponer. And that took up large amounts of my time, because you have to compare you're comparing your price list. So you're going to this store and you're going to that store. And all of it, just became this obsession for a way to bring in more money into our family, not take away as much time from the kids, like still be able to do stuff from home. Mm-hmm. But I was also just very desperate for something creative, like some type of, now I'm creative, but I am not artistic. So there's a very fine line with it. Mm-hmm. Very creative, not artistic. I'm very good with aesthetics, and I've always loved beauty. I mean, I've had 5 brothers, but no one, so I only had me to play dress up with growing up. And so I read all the magazines and I played around, and I would not say my skills were anything at all when I started this business. But, I started to feel this pressure and this kind of thing that I needed to be doing something else. And it's funny how it all works, because 4 years ago, so I've been doing Unique it was 4 years, like a week ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And 5 years ago, I remember going in for my yearly evaluation at work, and I'm not going to say that I did not like working. I love nurses. I loved being in the trenches. I loved the whole spirit of nursing, and I loved my coworkers. But there's a lot of burnout. Healthcare's changing, and the populations are changing, and just the general health status of everyone is changing. And I was feeling the burnout, plus the pressure to earn more money, while also not taking more time away from my family. Mm-hmm. And all of that was just kind of culminating and brewing over a course of a few years. So 5 years ago, I went into my yearly evaluation, and I remember my boss asking me, what is your 5-year goal? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And I said, I don't know what it looks like, but I see myself not wearing scrubs to work. And for me, I had no plan as to what that would look like. For me, it was more, maybe I'll be not in management. I was terrified of management. I was terrified of leadership. I just wanted to go in, clock in, do my work, and leave. But I was like, maybe I'll be in wound care, or maybe I'll be, in plastic surgery doing injections. I didn't know what it looked like, but I put that out there, and I remember it very clearly. In 5 years, I will not be in scrubs. I did not know that the 5 years would come as quickly as it did. But during that time, I was sort of introduced to the direct sales model through different home parties. Your friends will ask you, will you host this party? So I hosted a jewelry party, and I hosted a 31 party, and I really started to look. into those. So I'm like, that seems like something that's really fun. It's a party. You can be creative with your, your entertaining and your decorations. And I felt like it was going to check a lot of boxes for me. Mm-hmm. But because I didn't want to make a bad decision, the compensation plan had to check all my boxes. There was a lot of things that needed to line up. And so for 4 years, all of this was like over a 4-year period, I was investigating every company that came out. And I was, reading and kind of waiting and seeing how somebody would do over time. Like, are they going to start this business and then it's going to, it's going to fall, or what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. So,
what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I like about, I feel like there's so many gems here. One that really stands out to me is the fact that when you looked ahead at what you saw yourself doing in 5 years, it wasn't entirely clear, right? And sometimes I think in the beginning, right, when we're new entrepreneurs or aspiring, we hear a lot of rhetoric about what's your vision? What's your vision for what you want to do? And we also hear, what is your why? And I think you had a pretty clear why, right? You knew what you needed business to do for you, or at least what you wanted out of something next. But what I really appreciate is, like, you didn't have all of the components right up front, but you knew enough to say, I won't be in scrubs in 5 years. Like, and sometimes that's all we have in the beginning is, I just, for me, it was, I see myself running, and I said this years ago, an online professional development institute. I had ideas about what it meant, but didn't really know how it would manifest. I'd written out plans, but I would never have said, like, this is exactly where it would be today. So I appreciate, and I hope that listeners really hear that sometimes you don't have all the pieces, right? When you get started, it's just you're pulling things together. And what I hear in your story is, like, you're active. Like, you were actively looking. You were looking at models. You were looking at the numbers. You were also participating in things by saying, okay, I'll do parties or I'll host them just to kind of get a feel for it. So I think there's so much that, can be taken away from even just that, like, beginning of, I don't know, but here are the things that I do know. Right. So
here's what I know. Here's what I know that I don't want and cannot entertain. I read this quote a long time ago, and it just stuck with me forever because I've always been a very cautious person. I like to, I need to see all of the details for it before I'm going to make my plan. But I read this quote that kind of softened that a little bit, and it said, leap and the net will appear. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I was like, sometimes you just have to leap. And I'll have in a coaching call, I'll have someone say, how do I know what's the next right step in my business? And sometimes you don't know. You don't know how to get from A to B. You know that B is your goal, but you don't know how to get from A to B. And so my trajectory for that is every time you get to a place where you have a choice, choose the right thing. Like, there's always one thing that's more right than another. Like, right as in it's moral, it's ethical, it doesn't hurt anyone. It more closely steers you to where you want to go. So always keep doing the next right thing, and that's going to keep you on the path where you're supposed to end up, even if you don't know what the step after that is. Just the next right thing, and the next right thing, and the next right thing.
That's awesome. Do you feel like that next right thing sometimes is also like, let's say if everything, like, morally, ethically checks out on all fronts, but do you ever feel like there's just something like a nudging or an inclination or just something that kind of feels better?
I always tell my team, I'm like, it's usually the scariest of the options. So whatever it is, it's usually the thing that makes you most afraid. It's not the thing that's comfortable, because what would be comfortable for people would be to they want to grow their business and they want to grow their audience, but they have an option to do posts on Facebook, or they have an option to go live on Facebook. And the live thing is scarier. So, both are equally fine. They're equally fine to do. What is going to get you closer to your goal of expanding your network? There's a lot with Facebook with the algorithms, and you have to, what Facebook rates as higher popularity, and, all of that aside. think about what is the thing that makes you the most nervous, because that's our brains are set up to keep us safe. They're set up to, from back when we were cavemen. And back then, how do you stay the safest? You don't take the risks. And I think that just genetically we're predisposed to that, and our brains are wired to try to keep us safe. But the boldness is the thing that makes us uncomfortable, and it's typically the thing that will grow us best and get us closer to where we want to go.
I love this. So this actually brings me to a question, because I read somewhere, again, we do a little bit of research around here before we bring you all on. I read somewhere that you have called yourself an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
And I find that really interesting, because what I see on the outside is top consultant, top level, which let's, make that plain language. That means you are a top seller, right? You don't sell by sitting in a corner journaling, right?
Right.
A national convention speaker, which just drop the number for me of like the audience of what that national convention looks like.
Well, we had about 10,000 at convention, and then when you speak,
10,000.
Yeah, it's broken into smaller groups, but
that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Even if the smaller group is 1% of that, 1,000 still. So, and then I see you very active on Facebook. That's mostly where I see you. You probably are on other channels, but I see you mostly on Facebook Live. Right. And I read this about the extroverted introvert, which means introvert is like the base of that. Tell me how you manage that introverted kind of tendency with being in a business that requires you to be visible and like rising to the occasion of doing that.
So there has to always be this part of you that you protect, that you keep for yourself. So when I go to things like convention, I love people, don't get me wrong. Well, sometimes I don't, but for the most part, I do.
I hear you.
People have baggage. People have lots of baggage. And with nursing, it was challenged. You came home from work, from your shift, you had touched people all day. Like your hands were on people all day. There was no sense of personal space. You come home and you have the kids and they're all over you, touching you. And it's a lot of just tactile stimulation. And for me, that could be very exhausting. And then when you go to these conventions, they're so high energy. And anything with sales and with kind of a business mindset and a productivity mindset and growing people and energy, it's a lot when you're in these environments. And I'm more of a thinker. I think before I speak. I don't fly off the cuff, and I need time to process things, because I do try to see the big picture before, because I try to consciously not make wrong statements. It's being correct and accurate is very important to me. And I find that if you speak off the cuff, sometimes you're not always correct and accurate. So when you're at conventions with large amounts of people, especially women, and the energy's high and they're like-minded. So there's this sense of, I always liken it to being in church, where you are so filled with the Spirit and everybody's filled with the Spirit, and people want to hug each other and they want to touch each other and they want to high five, and there's just lots of hugging. And for me, I grew up with 5 brothers. It wasn't like my family was feely, but it wasn't a whole lot of hugging. And so for me, that kind of like takes away from my energy a little bit after it's gone on for a while. So when I do things like that, and I go to these conventions and I take these trips where you kind of have to be on, you have to be on, you have to be on your A game. You have to, as a top leader with people looking at you, you have to be making sure that you are seeing people, you're making them feel special, you're making them feel empowered. So you're pouring out of your cup all day long into people. And I have to take a break when I come back. The introverted part of me, she can sit in the corner for a little while the extroverted part of me takes over. But then after these conventions, I hike for like 4 days. People will say, "Where's mom?" She's in the woods. She's off in the woods. Because nature, that was the thing we did growing up, was we didn't have a lot to do. We grew up in the country, and exploring, it just kind of gives your brain a time to relax and process. And that's what we did. We built forts, and we discovered streams, and that has always been the place that I kind of come back to. And that's where the introverted part of me comes from. And that's part of why I love working from home, and with a social media based business, is because I can carve out these times to recharge. I can carve out these times to just dive into my personal development and the things that fill my cup back up, so that when it's time to be extroverted, my cup is full and ready to pour back out to other people.
It's awesome that you said that, because the energy that I see from you on Facebook Live, it just feels so authentic and so comfortable. You're not on there always talking about a product either. Like, you're talking about your life, or you're integrating a product into your life. You've shown photos even of you with your own skincare journey. And it doesn't feel like sales. I mean, I know you're connecting, the product and everything. So it's clear. No one feels like they're in for the okie doke, right? It's not that. Right. But it feels so authentic, and just not made up.
Right.
And I really admire that, because I think, that we're in a space where there's so much happening on social media that, to be able to be yourself and to have that energy. So I see that energy as well. It's interesting now to hear what happens behind the scenes, so that you can come with that energy and with something that you care about, and kind of present yourself in a way that works. So you brought up something that I was actually thinking about for our listeners. So you're in Virginia, and the area, I guess you would maybe describe it as kind of rural to suburban.
Yes, that's what I would definitely call it.
Okay.
We're about, so we're Northern Virginia, which everybody thinks is, bustling and crowded and all of that. But we are part of the western sprawl. So we're in the part of Loudoun County that is still, it's right at the base of the Blue Ridge, and there's plenty of rural areas, but then I'm in a neighborhood. So it's kind of like the suburbanites moved west, but they stayed clustered together for safety.
So here's why I bring this up, because sometimes we can make excuses in business, or feel fear. Maybe it's even just fear. It's not even an excuse, but fear around, can I be successful in business if I'm not in New York, or if I'm not in LA, or in London, or in Amsterdam, or Berlin? And you are showing that you can be successful no matter where you are. And I'd like you to speak a little bit to what you think has attributed to you being able to be, and let's just be clear, I mean success in terms of numbers, like numbers that you bring in, and also your reach. What do you think has been a part of that for you, that in, Western Virginia, that you can still be successful and profitable in business?
Right. I mean, social media it's the reaches extend so far. I tell people your business reaches as far as social media reaches, and the reach is it's unending. It just, that, I would say the majority of so if we look in terms of numbers, a lot, with direct sales, one of the things that you will hear often is oversaturation, or there's too many people in my area who do this, so I'm not going to be able to carve out my own place. But with our particular business model being social media based, I tell people the majority of my customers are in various parts of the state. They're my customers through social media. They're not my customers because we live on the same street. They're not my customers because I have a storefront and they show up at my door, or I go knocking like Avon lady style. So social media just opens up so much. But the flip side of that is because it's social media, you have to work a little bit harder to form those connections. You have to create that personal experience for someone so that they still feel that connection to you, and they want to be a part of what you are a part of and what you're presenting. There's, it's I don't even know how to word it. I love it. I love social media. It's always been a love-hate relationship with social media.
Give me an example then of how a kind of a concrete example of a strategy or a tactic that you have used in the past to really create that personal experience that you're talking about, so people feel connected more to you. So,
you have to present yourself. You do have to remain authentic. I am not a good actress at all. I've never have been. I'm terrified of being in a play. So I really have had no option but to be authentically me. But when it's social media and when it's television and when it's radio and things like that, my normal personality might be, I'm pretty mellow. I'm a pretty mellow, easygoing person. So my personality energy level might be a 5. But in order for that to convey across social media, because you're not touching the person, you're not in the same room feeling their energy, you have to dial that up. You have to drink a Diet Coke or a cup of coffee, and you have to pep yourself up, and you have to crank it to a 7 or an 8 so that you don't look a little cuckoo, but you still have to dial it up a little bit while remaining who you are. I say wrong things. I say wrong things all the time. I can't let that bother me. As long as what I say, I might say something that's not, it might be a little nuts. I mean, I have a toad that I dress up and put in, she drives a little mini car and a scooter. So, but that's me. I think it's hilarious. And I think that, maybe somebody else will think it's hilarious. So that I bring it to the table and I offer it to my audience. I don't, I say just take your crazy flag and just fly it like you want to, but remain professional. Be professionally crazy.
And now, I think people will get this more when they kind of go back and they look at your social media channels. But the toad, so Nicole is being honest. At some point within the past couple weeks, the toad has made an appearance, and I've seen her in a tiara. I've seen her with lipstick. People love it. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. It's so light. And maybe we need light right now, right? Maybe that's more. But
and the
people
toad,
have
she can
loved
be
it.
fierce. The toad can say things that I can't say. She can be a mouthpiece for me. She can be a little more fierce than I can. She's almost like an alternate personality or alter ego.
Yeah.
But for the record, the lipstick and eyelashes were photoshopped. I did not actually put lipstick on the toad. I feel that that's important to clarify.
But I love the message here about authenticity. And, thank you for also sharing about what you do on social media, because I think it can be a little bit scary, especially when we know that there's the background of it, which is the kind of data and math and algorithms of it. And you kind of are how do I get that right? Or what do I do? The planning aspect of social media, right? Knowing what times of day to go on.
Right.
And then all of that, we're women. So then it's also often, the production piece of it. Is my hair right today? Is my makeup right today? And you're in the beauty world, and not every day are you coming on with a full face. That's not how you show up. Nor is it your everyday kind of and I'm going to do my face right now. Yes, you do some of those as well. Right. But I think what I see of your work is you also create stories along with it. There's it's not just here's a product and let me drop this here, but there's always a story with it.
I try to keep it very solutions based. I try to think about what somebody else might be struggling with and what value can I offer to them through this platform, because trends are always changing, and I feel we're so, I don't know, I feel everywhere we turn there's a restriction as to what beauty is defined as and what we should look like when we go out, and what's an appropriate color. I mean, I grew up in Southern Virginia, so you didn't wear white after Labor Day, and I still will call my friend's mom and say, I have a 5 o'clock garden wedding that I have to go to. What length dress do I need to wear? You know, it's there's guidelines, but for me, they were always a little restrictive, because what if I want to have an Egyptian wing eyeliner because that makes me feel confident because I think it's interesting, and I want to be able to do that, and I want to be able to teach someone else how to do that too. Maybe somebody wants to be, maybe they don't want to be creative. Maybe they want to be creative. Maybe they just want to wear neutrals. I don't know. That's not for me to decide, but I am here to offer them options for whatever they want to do. You know, what I usually do is kind of pull from what people message me about. Mm-hmm. You know, my pores seem very visible, so I'm not going to come and do a get ready with me. Here's what I'm wearing today. I feel like those are very me-centric, and it's all like, look at me, look at how I'm putting on my makeup, look at the colors that I've chosen. Whereas I try to present more, you don't like this eyebrow. Let's figure out how you can feel fierce with your eyebrow. You know, let's do this little tweak. And this is how you can do it quickly and incorporate it into your life. Because it shouldn't take a long time unless you want it to take a long time. People will often say, I only have time for 5 minutes. I only have time for a 5-minute face. Okay, that's fine. But you're going to get a 5-minute face. You're not going to get a full glam in 5 minutes. You can't look at a picture of somebody and say, I want to look like that, but I only have 5 minutes. So part of the job, too, is setting a realistic expectation for somebody and trying to, you know, fit what their lifestyle is, but also empowering them to know that they're worth more than 5 minutes. You're worth carving out 15 minutes just for you. If makeup is something that you enjoy doing, there's no vanity in saying I like to play with makeup, because for me, it's just another canvas. I do not wear makeup every day. I probably wear makeup 3 days a week, and it's my profession. But I'm very comfortable in my skin, you know, because skincare, but I'm becoming more and more comfortable in who I am. And I don't wear the makeup because I feel like I need to wear the makeup. I wear it because for me, it's another creative outlet. How can I look at this picture and try to recreate it? That looks so fun. I don't follow the rules of you have to wear this color if you have this eye color, or only wear brights in the summertime. You know, I don't follow all those rules, and I try to empower my audience to do what you want to do. But if you need the skills to know how to do it better, I can help you with that. But you know, make your own rules. Do the things that make you feel beautiful. If you want to wear makeup, wear makeup. If you want your skin if you want to feel more confident in your skin and your complexion, I can help with that too. But don't let someone else's opinion be the thing that influences what you do when you're sitting in the chair looking in the mirror every morning. That's only you.
And I think that's a good lesson in business, right? Because sometimes there will be things that, you know, we decide to do, like you were talking about earlier, those next steps, like what to do next in business, that might feel a little bit different, that aren't the things that, you know, everyone else is doing or are kind of off the beaten path. So it feels like that's really transferable, you know, also to how we can do business. So I have two questions that we usually wrap up with, but before that, I want to sneak one in. Okay. So I talk a lot about mindset. For me, mindset, I think just in life in general is really important. The things that we think, the things that we tell ourselves, the things that we allow ourselves to kind of take in. But it's also super important in business. And I want to ask and kind of get an understanding how, when I say how, I mean like literally, like what do you do? Like what are your practices that keep you courageously moving from the mom and nurse who just got started and, you know, launched into business to moving through all of these stages and steps to get to where you are right now? Because I imagine it's not always easy. I imagine there's times you get exhausted or there's new challenges, right? What do you do to keep yourself truly like your mind is focused and your mind is solid and sound, and confident and courageous.
And we discuss this so much on our team. I mean, people get sick of us hearing us say personal development. You have to dig into the personal development. I did not grow up a very positive person. Like I was a pretty, the world's out to get me type person. And I always felt very defensive and like I had to guard myself. But then after I started this business, I'm like, this is not serving me. This is not moving my business forward. I can't move forward on the offense if I'm always working in the defense. So I read this book. Well, actually, I watched this YouTube clip. It was by Shawn Anchor, Shawn Anchor, and he is, I think he goes to Yale, or he went to Yale. He's a professor there. He's written some books, but he did this little clip on the happiness advantage. And then he wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. And the entire premise of the book is, how do we look at these people? Well, there's the science part of it, which I won't get into, but it's basically you have to be happiness driven and not success driven. Because if you look at it as these goals on this finish line, and success is before happiness, you will always hit that success goal, because maybe your goal is 10,000 in company volume this month. You're going to hit that. And when you don't feel that instant happiness, you move your success goal. Well, if happiness is on the other side of success, you're constantly moving the goal, the finish line. You're constantly moving it. So if happiness is your goal, happiness is on this side of success, you will hit happiness every time as long as you're pushing for it. And that will carry you through to the success, whether that goal continues to move, whether that spot on the finish line continues to move or not. And I started to be very consciously aware of that, of thinking when something comes to me, first and foremost, take a second to respond. Like, don't knee-jerk response. And then the other thing is respond with kindness, because maybe I have heard the same question a million times in this business. Like maybe a team members come to me and they ask the same thing. But the thing is, that person has probably only asked it one time. It's probably the first time that person has asked it. So it's not fair to them for me to be annoyed or overwhelmed with answering the same question over and over and over again when it's their first time ever asking it. So I keep that in mind. I respond with kindness. I fill my brain with positivity all day long.
Wow. What do you do?
So I've read The Happiness Advantage probably 25 times. I keep reading it. And I will just plug into a podcast and I'll just search motivating network marketing podcasts, so that there's this narrative playing in the back of my mind all day long. You can do this. You can do this. I also have my playlists of music that make me feel like super pumped. They're mostly inappropriate, but
it works for you. It's behind the scenes.
They get you going. You're like, yes, I can do this. And the other thing is, I try, and this actually started when I was a nurse, because you deal with so many personalities in the nursing industry, as patients and as coworkers, that what I try to say is, it's just her. She's just having a bad day. And I refuse to take responsibility for someone else's baggage. So if someone's being mean to me, it's like if there was a coworker who was being unusually aggressive, I would just try to say, oh, she's just having a bad day. Obviously, it's not me. And move on with it, because when you don't take that responsibility for someone else's baggage, it's so much easier to just put it aside and they will deal with it. It will all work its way out. We often think that we have to respond to everything, every little perceived slight and injustice against us. And we don't, because oftentimes it's not even about us. It's about something in their personality or their day or that happened to them on the way to work. And if you can just push that aside and let it go, it's just so much easier to respond with kindness, to not let it weigh you down, to maintain a forward focus in your business and in your day. So those are just some things I do. Like, I'll always say, it's not me. It's obviously not me. It's them. And just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. You don't have to respond to everything.
That's really good.
And I also try to see my shortcomings. I know, like, I don't have a business degree. There are some things about this business that I might not be the best from. So I try to remain coachable and receive coaching from everywhere, and also know who's good at certain things, where, like, who is good at the things that I'm not good at, and be able to connect people with that. So if there's someone that comes to me and they have a question or they need help in a area that I might not be the best in, I'm going to know who is the best and try to plug them in that way, try to send them to get the help that they need. We can't do it all. We can't know it all, but we do have to be aware and willing to accept help and know how to help others, even if that help is not us. So you have to put the ego aside a little bit.
You have shared so many gems throughout this discussion. I mean, I could just keep talking to you. But I usually end with asking our guests, like, what are 2 pieces of advice that you have for people who want to start a business or have just recently begun?
Okay. My biggest piece is the important people in your life, you have to have a realistic discussion with them. You have to sit down and talk to them about what your goals are. Set your personal goals, set your business goals, set your family goals, and get them on board with it. Because if you don't have the support of the people who are in the house with you and in your doing life with you, they will feel pushed to the side. They will feel like this thing is taking the place of them, and that breeds resentment, which will bring in negativity. It will bring in pushback. It will be a distraction for you going hard with your business. So you can say, and it's okay to say, I need this for me. I need this extra thing. I need this network. I need this community. I need this income. Whatever it is that you need, it's okay to say that I need this. And I need you to be on board with it for 1 year. Or whatever time period you set up, I'm going to go hard for 1 year. And that means I might need you to help with the laundry. Be very clear about what you lay out, what roles or tasks or chores that you have that you might have to get them to share the responsibility a little bit, but be very clear about it. One of our corporate people actually did a class at convention for the husbands, and it was called Lead, Follow, or Get Out of the Way.
Yes, I love it.
And I always I think back to that, because my husband, he's always been, he'll do whatever. He's like, I can lead, I can follow, I can get out of the way, whatever you need me to do. But it's because I've always been very, we've had a lot of times in our life where I'll say, I'm going to go do this. Is that okay? And he'll say, you don't have to ask me for permission. I'm like, I'm not asking you for permission. I am giving you the courtesy of letting you know what my plans are and I'm giving you an opportunity to be awesome and say, that's okay, go ahead and do it.
You're like, I'm giving you a win. That's what I'm doing.
I'm giving you a win. Take the win. Take the win. So I have that very realistic discussion, get them on board, set expectations, and you can't just be all like, this is me, this is what I'm going to do, grr, grr, grr. You have to listen to them too, and maybe your progress won't be as quick or as fast, but you maintain that balance that you need at home, so that you're not rocking everyone's boat, And then the other thing is you have to set realistic expectations for what you are willing to do, because business and entrepreneurship is tough. You have to be consistent. Consistency is one of the biggest things. You can't just decide to show up when you feel like it. You have to be consistent. You have to make the time for it. You have to be able to invest some resources into it. And you have to, I use the example, I'm like, you can't just, it's not an osmosis business. It's not a Green Lantern. You don't get the Green Lantern and then poof, you are the Green Lantern. That's not how this business works. You can't just buy your presenter's kit or your business and then buy a couple of trainings and maybe you watch them and maybe you don't, but you then 6 months down the road when your business isn't any further along than it is, and you're like, well, this business doesn't work. No, you didn't put the work in. Like, you have to set these expectations. I know that I have an hour a day, or I know that I only have 30 minutes a day. I know that I have 4 hours a day. And then you have to set it aside, commit to it, and show up doing the tasks that the income producing tasks. Like, you have to do them. Or then don't say, 6 months down the road, oh, well, this didn't work. Well, if you only are posting about your business on your Facebook page once every 2 weeks, and you think that the world is watching and is just going to start making it rain for you, that's not how it happens. That's not how you build trust and relationships, because that's what this business is about, is trust and relationships. And entrepreneurship in general, you have to set these expectations and these goals and then do the work. And if you don't do the work, then you can't say, this entrepreneurship doesn't work. Entrepreneurship is a scam, because that's not it. You have to do the work. It's not a lottery ticket. It's not a get rich quick thing. You have to set a realistic expectation that most businesses aren't profitable for 3 to 5 years. I am willing to do the things that I have to do every day for 3 to 5 years, and know that about yourself. And if you don't have that, then maybe scale back what success looks like to you and readjust your goal, shift your goal, that maybe I'm okay with this status level, or maybe I'm okay with this level of success, because there's no shame in that. Just because you can do it all doesn't mean that you want to do it all. Doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that at this time in your life that's going to be the priority for you.
That is wisdom. That's a lot of wisdom. I am so fortunate, so blessed to have had you here today. And I want to give our listeners an opportunity to tap into you, hear more about you, see your toad who is dressed in lashes and lipstick, and just get a chance to experience you, and get a chance to experience even, the confidence, the gems, the more teaching, more training, and even the products that you use. So tell us where our listeners can find you.
So I try to stay as authentic and personable as possible through my Facebook page. So right now it's just my profile page. At some point, I will transition over to my Facebook business page, but for right now, I find that I can be most me on my Facebook page. So it would just be facebook.com /Nicole.e as in echo .gill. So Nicole.e.gill. I think that's it. Or they can search me. They can search me with Nicole Eldergill. Just search me on Facebook, and I keep my friend requests pretty open. You have a 5,000 person limit. I try to keep it down just because I want to actually know the people who are watching me, and I don't accept just every person that sends me a friend request. I want to get to know my audience and the people who are trusting me, with any type of information or advice. So I try to keep that down. And then I also have an Instagram page for the toad, and you can follow her at Irma, as in IRMA, Irma_Fabulous Frog. Yeah, that's it. That's the Instagram name for her. And we don't know what her path is going to look like. We don't know what that's going to metamorphosize into. We're getting our feelers out for her right now, but that's another aspect of business. Like, don't shut, if you feel like, I don't know what, maybe you're this crazy baking person and you want to bake while you're also coaching people. Like, do it. Do whatever it is that brings you joy, that you find happiness. People walk into my house and they'll say, I would never have thought to put this here, or why is this here? And almost everything has a story, because I feel like you should do the things and surround yourself with the things that bring you joy, whether it seems ridiculous to someone else or not. Just be joyful. So my house looks like a gypsy caravan tipped over in it, but everything in here makes me joyful. So I have a unicorn head on my wall, and I'm like, that's just joy right there. Just be joyful. Surround yourself with it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome time. Thank you for joining Ready to Launch with me, Fatima Williams, and our inspiring guests. I'm committed to helping you turn this inspirational information into actionable advice. So I created the Ready to Launch syllabus. To get the most out of your listening time, go to fatimawilliams.com/launch and download my free Ready to Launch syllabus today. And as always, I'd love to hear your comments and takeaways from this session. What are you ready to launch and what's your next step? Join the conversation on Facebook or follow me on Instagram at Fatima PhD. Let's get ready to launch.